How's it going, guys? My name is Jake, and today I have a little bit of a different video for you. I'm going to do this a bit more freeform. I have some notes, and I'm just going to kind of talk to you guys about this topic. Now, in my channel, I usually talk about audio engineering, mixing techniques, and how sound works in general. So today I want to talk to you about a bit more of the creative side and writing music in general. I have over a decade and a half of experience in writing music, some formal music theory, and just a lot of song composition experience in general. So I wanted to share with you my workflow and some of the tips that I find to be very helpful in actually finishing music from start to finish. And I know a lot of people, music producers out there, have trouble sometimes kind of saying, okay, this piece is done, let's get it out there and let's start on my next piece. So this is what I'm going to go through in this video. I just want to talk to you guys about how I do this consistently and hopefully get you on the right path to doing so as well. So make sure if you like this video to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more music related content. It really goes a long way with this channel, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. But for now, let's get into this video. The first tip that I want to talk to you about is the element of music that you start with. This is definitely a subjective question which is kind of going to be the theme of this video. A lot of it's subjective. Like I said, I just want to give you these ideas to help you on that right path. So let me give you my thoughts, and hopefully it will help you to formulate your own ideas on what element you need to start with while writing music. Usually it goes one or two ways from my experience. Either you start by writing the beat or you start by writing the melody. Sure, some people may go with a chord progression or maybe a bass line. I'm not sure. Just from my experience, like I said, I normally only would either start with some kind of drum beat or a melody. And 90% of the time, I'm going to go with the melody. And here's why. The lead melody is naturally more customizable. There are endless variations in outcomes if you start with the melody versus if you start with a drum beat. When you start with a drum beat, you most likely will find yourself locked into a groove, which can be a good thing for some certain situations. But that groove most likely has been done before, and there are only so many different rhythmic patterns that you're going to have to play with once you write that beat and say, okay, this is where I'm going on from here. So this is why I write a melody first. It gives you more options, and when you finally stumble upon that melody that speaks to you, you will have a great theme for the whole song, and you will most likely start hearing the secondary parts as well as the drum beat as well. And it just gives you more options from that one element that has been written. It will definitely take longer to write that melody first than to write, say, a beat, but I think it's a better way to be satisfied overall with the start and what you are writing from the get-go. It's pretty easy to tell if a song is good from just the melody versus being able to tell if a song is good from, say, a beat. That's not to say that there are some very strong applications for writing the beat first. I just find it more useful for the rest of the songwriting process to write the melody as my first element. All right, so my second tip that I have for you, this is kind of a weird one, and some of you may not agree with this, but what I like to do is outline my song once I have that first element. And what I mean by outline is to write, say I have my melody, my hook. That's probably going to go in the chorus usually, because that's the main part. That's what identifies the song. What I then like to do is write, say I have an intro, chorus, pre-chorus, chorus, kind of go through the whole outline of the song. And by doing this, it gives me kind of blanks that I know I need to fill in. It tells me how much more of the song I need to write. And like always, you're never locked into it. Never be locked into anything during this creative process. But I think it's a great start to be like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I have. And it will just kind of keep you on a good focused track. It's kind of just, like a to-do list essentially with writing music. I know a lot of people out there have trouble finishing songs, not necessarily starting it, but by outlining all the parts that you have, you can see how much more you need to write and envision the entirety of the song. And this is a strategy that I've just found to be very useful in my songwriting process and help me to consistently finish the songs that I write. My third step and my third tip, I guess, is simply to start filling in these gaps. This is why I think it is important to have the melody or your first part first as your first tip, and then have your outline. And because now you can just start filling them in, and writing each part will come a lot more easy for you once you have these first two processes done. Obviously, this part of the process is very subjective and can go in many different directions, but I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and tips on finishing the whole actual composition of the piece. So if you followed me so far and you do have a melody and a hook of the song written at this point, it's important that you reference it in some way. And I guess this can go obviously in, say you have a chord progression first or you have a drum beat. You're going to want to reference this beat or whatever element that you have to writing the rest of the songs. And it seems kind of obvious, but it's sometimes overlooked, and I just kind of wanted to mention it. But you do want to reference it, and a technique that I have used is to take the melody and simplify it a little bit. Simplify it in the verse per se. Maybe changing a note here or there to create a different cadence at the end. But what this will do is give the listener a tease of the hook that drives the song, so that when they hear this slightly different melody, it reminds them of the main hook and what is to come. This is a simple way to create the tension and release that makes songs so popular, or so strong and so powerful. If you do in fact have this melody, another tip to creating alternative parts and filling in your outline is to take a look at music theory. Now, this is definitely more of a textbook option, but it does work for a reason. Music theory is really just one big pattern, and it helps you to understand the relative nature of notes that work together and the notes that won't. So, for example, if you know your melody is heavily based around the A note, you can look at what notes relate to it and what notes will help to create that tension and release. For example, usually a minor second or some seventh interval will create tension because it's so close to your original note that it will essentially tease your brain into wanting to hear that original A note once again. And this is played back in the hook, therefore creating the release and that elation that a listener will get once they hear that satisfying note once again. I definitely think it is a good reference point using music theory. It does take away a little bit of the creative process, and I would never say, writing a song all in music theory is just kind of lame in my opinion, but it works, and it works for a reason. So just kind of understanding it will help you to better understand your own composition. So music theory is a good tool to use if it comes down to it. All right, so my fourth tip for you guys is once you have your general composition completed, everything's done, or generally speaking, you have the basic outline of your song, you've written all the parts, and you're happy with it. The next tip that I have is to start really thinking about the elements, the tone of each part. Now, by now you obviously have certain tones in certain parts, but before this point, I would actually suggest to not worry about it too much. The tones and the elements that you use can very much change the feel of a song and can make or break even the best of compositions. And one of my favorite examples of this tip here is the difference between like a flute and brass instruments. You can probably tell right off the bat which element might be better for a slower, relaxing song, and which one would be more appropriate for an upbeat, high energy song. The tone, the nature of the elements that you're using can really add this next dimension to your composition. And I'll give you a few tips on how I find these parts as well. Because you've spent so much time simply composing your song, you really should have an idea of what type of feel it has. And this is what I mean by letting yourself write the whole song first without worrying too much. I really like to let my compositions develop naturally through the songwriting process. And as I write the piece, you're adding your verses, choruses, drops, breaks. Your overall vision grows stronger and stronger as you continue. And having this vision is very important to finding the right elements and tones for your piece. And my best advice for developing this vision is, like I said, don't worry about the tones and elements right off the bat. Just focus your energy on writing the simple composition at first. And I think once you have this idea of how the song sounds overall, it'll be way easier to really lock in the tones that you need to make it stronger. And once you have this general vision, another tip for developing your elements is to use a reference track. One of the best ways to write music is to listen to a lot of other music and pull from many different influences. I usually find that when I'm composing a song, it will remind me at least a little bit of a few other songs that I've listened to in the past. And going back and listening to these influences, even if it just reminds you of the artist or a specific style, it can help you to formulate ideas on tones and elements that will effectively potentiate the power of your tune. Finding these references will set you on the right track to appropriately choosing or creating the tones and elements of your song. The most effective songs are those that people can relate to, and the best songs out there work for a reason. So definitely don't be afraid to pull these ideas from others' songs that you enjoy. It will honestly only make your song more relatable to you and your listeners. Now, this doesn't mean copy it verbatim. It just means, oh, I like this idea. Let's take certain aspects of it and make it my own. Obviously, I'm not saying to copyright a song exactly how it is. I just wanted to let you know that is by no means what I mean. It's just, I think it's very important that you make sure it's okay that you can pull from other influences, and that is something that everybody does, and it is a very good technique to making your song more relatable. All right, so my last tip is kind of a strange one, but I find a lot of creative minds have trouble with this as well. And my last tip is to know when to say your song is done and finished. Most people who are more on the creative spectrum tend to be idealists in the sense that the work can always be better. And I am by no means saying that this is a bad thing, as it helps you to create the best piece of music that you are capable of. But it does come to a point where you may feel like it needs something, but you're not sure what, and you're spending hours tweaking little things, hoping to find that final adjustment that satisfies you. This is the point where you need to take a step back and ask yourself if it is just you overthinking the end result of your piece. A good technique that I have found for when you reach this point is to step away from your mix or your song for a while. Give your ears a break, maybe go listen to some other music, take a walk, come back for a few hours later. And this is a pretty effective way of refreshing your perspective on your own work and hopefully help you to finalize that piece. My other tip for you when you reach this point is to get another friend or just another producer, musician to give their opinion on it. This is a very effective way to get a new perspective on the piece, and they can either tell you if you're just overthinking it or help you figure out what else the piece needs. Perspective is key in this situation, and you really want to find a way to refresh your perspective or get a new one on the piece. So these are my tips that I have for you on finishing and writing music in general. I really hope that it helped to outline the process that I find works, and I hope that it will work for you as well, or at least set you on the right direction to finishing your music more consistently. I'm going to wrap up this video here. Let me know if you guys have any tips that work for you. Like I said, I always love to hear from you guys. This is a community where we all learn from each other, and I've already learned a lot from you. So definitely let me know what you guys find works for you. I'd love to hear it. I respond to pretty much all comments, so I'd love to hear your thoughts. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.